Hey everyone, we're back with this week's edition of Hacking TV.
This week it's earnings week. That's good news for some folks.
And bad news for others. The FCC wants to open up the set-top box market, and media companies are crying foul.
And what is the future of digital on-demand TV news? A bunch of developments on that front.
I'm Steve Rosenbaum.
And I'm Saul Hansel.
And this is Hacking TV. And here we are. We are live.
It's been like 6 months now and everything like that.
Yeah, we've been cranking away and learned a lot. Thank you, folks, for tolerating our weird live stuff. We're still trying to see how many places we can feed this fabulous podcast, but we have a lot to cover. So let's jump right in and talk about earnings, because earnings are a really interesting year.
The thing about earnings is Facebook has a lot of them. And lots of people said, is this a business? And it turns out that it is a huge business, growing fast and making boatloads of profits. And maybe we can learn something from that. They have an enormous amount of people's time and data, and they have figured out the mobile phone.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty damn good combination.
You know, Zuckerberg basically went through the place now, 4 or 5 years ago, and said, anybody that doesn't get with mobile and get with apps, here's the door. And there was no we'll think about mobile, we'll think about apps, we'll see if it's going to work. He did not want to go HTML5. He did not want to go, didn't want to go, native video. He wanted apps, and he has, on a number of occasions, he's reached into his pocket and written big checks, Instagram being a terrific example of that, I know more young people that say to you when you ask them about Facebook, oh yeah, I don't use Facebook. It's terrible. My parents are on it. My grandparents are on it. I'm on Instagram.
I think that looks, exceedingly smart. In retrospect, they solved the problem. I finally got around to reading David Kirkpatrick's very good book called The Facebook Effect that came out several years ago before the Instagram thing. And it was interesting to me how much he was thinking about the tension between kids and grown-ups. And in that case, it was trying to, preserve kids on Facebook. And I think they must have figured out, flip it around, and, let Facebook get older and go with the flanker brand. And there are very few companies that young that are willing to essentially give up their heritage and do something completely different for their core audience because it needs to. And that's, I think, one of the key strengths of management there.
So let's talk about video, because this is Hacking TV. On the earnings call, Facebook admitted that video is driving engagement like crazy. This is the TechCrunch coverage. And they're seeing 8 billion with a B, billion video views a day from 500 million users, which amounts to 100 million hours of time spent watching video per day.
So let's do the division there. 8 billion, 100 million hours. What? That's like, what is that? It's minutes per person per day, which is interesting. The thing to think about Facebook, right, is what is the medium? The medium is this thing that you flip with your thumb, and it scrolls up. And that is very, you can say that Zuckerberg said we have to go mobile, but he's got a medium that's very conducive to a thumb-based device. And the video does these little autoplay dances as you scroll up. So it becomes these little teases to dive into a clip. And it's an interesting thing. It's going to be very interesting to see, is the vertical scrolling stream going to supplant flipping through the dials on cable.
And he did a lot of things, a lot of product decisions that are very smart. So just for example, the fact that there's no audio and you have to turn audio on has generated an entire new business around people like Now This News, who understand that you need to tell people a story with text and pictures that's compelling enough that they either get it without ever turning audio on, or they turn on audio because the text and pictures offer such a cliffhanger that you're like, I got to know what they're saying.
This is really important. All the people in the traditional media companies who are saying, oh, we're just going to repurpose our content and put these little clips on the web are all going to lose. It is a different medium. The medium, for example, on Facebook, which is the platform that people use, wants silent teasers with optional sound. There are very good reasons for that, but you have to think differently. You can't just take little things off of your linear TV network and have them make sense with silent optional sound. You have to make them from scratch, understanding things. And that's why Now This News is going to beat CNN. I'm not super a fan of Now This News, but they will, in some ways, but they're going to be able to do things that are endemic to the medium.
All right, let's keep going on earnings because I'm realizing we're having a good time, but we got to move a little faster. Amazon. So Amazon, got punished a little bit. What's your take on that?
Well, look, Amazon is a phenomenal company that sort of doesn't care what investors think because they built a company from nothing to a lot in 20 years and they were right and the market was wrong, and they've always been that way. But they're basically a lot of the bets that they have made are paying off. They're where was it? Walmart is closing stores all around the country because of online commerce, meaning Amazon, right? So their core business hurts. They won't say much about their video business, but they did boast that the Fire TV Stick is the best-selling video device, if we believe them. Maybe that's because they're the top retailer of that sort of thing and they stopped carrying Apple TV. But that gives them some distribution. There, as you gleefully note on behalf of the filmmaking community, they've been writing big checks at Sundance all week.
They have made people very happy at Sundance.
And
we won't talk about it today because we got earnings to get through. But I think that Netflix, Amazon, Sundance story is going to be very different coming out of 2016 than it was 2015. Very different.
How so?
Filmmakers are more interested in making deals. Both Amazon and to some extent Netflix, though not as much, are, Amazon said flat out, we are going to get you screens. We're going to guarantee you actual theatrical, because the whole battle is the Academy won't allow you to have a chance to win an Academy Award, an Emmy, unless you have your film in theaters on screens. And so, back in the day, HBO was always really good at staying in the background, letting documentaries get produced, get four-walled, get seen in a couple of theaters for a couple of weeks to meet the Academy minimum, and then HBO would step out from the shadows and say, oh, we bought that film. Amazon is doing that to some extent. They're buying films and helping with theatrical, and they believe in theatrical. Netflix has said, we believe in films and filmmaking, but we're not going to suck up to screens quite the same way. So,
although didn't they put something they produced into screens?
They did. The film they put on screens got terrific critical reviews, but didn't do very well in theaters.
Look,
all right, but let's. So Amazon.
We're talking about that. Apple is this puzzle. It had more profits in the last quarter than any company in the history of companies, and everybody got all grumpy because they didn't quite sell as many iPhones this year that they did last year, even though they sell 100,000 a minute or something like that. If you had a business where you made something and in under 10 years a billion people on the planet bought one and used one, and then maybe sales slow down because everybody who could afford it had one, is that a bad story?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a bad
for
story.
I'm not so sure I'm so critical of a company that has sold something. I mean, they have 1 billion simultaneous iOS users with live active devices.
So 3 things.
Yes.
Apple Watch was a disaster.
Except they sold more in dollar volume in Apple Watches last year than the entire Swiss watch industry. So
It's still a none of the trend leaders that I know have one on their wrist.
And how many people did you know that had an iPhone the first year?
A lot. But
Not
in any
everybody.
case, we'll let the listeners, the viewers, chime in here. Saul says Apple Watch is a success. Thumbs up. Steve says Apple Watch is a complete dog. Thumbs down. Vote away. By the way, you're going to lose this vote so badly, it's going to make your head spin.
My point is, it's not even interesting to look at Generation 1 of a product. Generation 1 of the product is you throw something out there, you see what people do with it, and then you figure out, oh, it needs an app store. Guess what?
It needs to not be on somebody's wrist, because I don't want a computer on my wrist. But again, as long as I'm going to beat on Apple TV was they made noises. They were going to come out with the streaming deals. They were going to do all this stuff where they had network deals, and it was going to be this device that kind of, gave cord cutters a new way to consume TV. Didn't happen. So I haven't the new Apple TV, and I play with it a little bit, but it hasn't replaced my TiVo box. It hasn't replaced my Roku. And then the scariest, so long as I'm beating on Apple for a little bit, the scariest thing is something weird happened at Sundance. And I'm trying to nail it down. I can't get the facts. I'm working on it. But Sundance and Google announced this deal where they were going to put on Google Cardboard all the Sundance VR films called VR Next or Sundance Next. There's 30 of them. It's a lot of work. And I, as an iPhone user, got very excited and went to my Google Cardboard app and tried to download the Sundance app, and it's only available on the Android store. It's not available for Apple. Now, maybe I'm just not finding it, but I went out to my social network and said, what am I doing wrong? And nobody knew. And I've spent probably an hour trying to find where the Sundance films can be seen on an iOS device, and it appears that they can't. And if so, that would explain Tim Cook saying conveniently 48 hours ago, VR is really cool, and we've got a skunkworks with 100 people working, and they've got to do some serious catch-up on VR, which I know you don't believe in, and we'll have a whole show about that. And you could beat on me about that later, but
there's another Apple rumor that ties this together, and we'll come back to it when we get to the FCC story next. But the buzz now is, since they couldn't get the cable networks, programming companies, to agree to their vision of a service, that they're thinking about copying Netflix and Amazon and commissioning their own content. That, if it turns out to be true, and of course they'll think about it because they're not dumb, but if they end up doing that, that would be a major philosophical change for a company that essentially has wanted to be a platform company and a distributor of music and video for everybody, to say, we can't cut deals with these damn networks. We're going to have to be vertically integrated. And, Amazon is selling Fire TV boxes that way. Netflix, less so. At the same time, I wonder whether, if that turns out to be the case, the networks are going to regret it. Because Apple's got, $200 million in the bank, $200 billion in the bank. They can buy up shows, right? Maybe if that's the way it goes, the Disneys of the world are going to have a lot less of an opportunity than in a world where they had Apple as a neutral distributor. Don't know that.
I'm going to leave the Apple conversation because you and I could go at it for the entire show, and I'm going to move instead to Time Warner Cable. Oh, see, that's not.
The number of videos.
Wait. Was that a pig sound or a snoring sound?
Actually went up, which means that the cord cutting phenomenon, while very real, is still not hit the deep descent of the roller coaster curve, and it might slightly be an endorsement of the fact that they are enabling the Rokus and digital set-top boxes of the world. What else jumped out at you other than that they were trying to be really nice as more and more people try and complain about their merger?
I thought Rob Marcus's picture was really handsome.
Okay.
It's very hard to run a business and sell a business and then not have that sale go through and then run a business and try and sell a business. It's very hard.
They gave up, right? They don't want to be in that business. They want someone to buy them.
Well, yeah, and Charter wants to buy them, but now it looks like maybe that won't happen, so they have to go back to running the business again.
All right.
Anyway, moving on. The one unknown, because it hasn't been announced yet, is Viacom.
Okay.
Now, I gotta say, Seeking Alpha tends to be a somewhat snarky site, but they're smart. And creatively bankrupt is a headline that is going to echo around on Monday morning. That's a tough headline. Creatively bankrupt.
Is that new news for Viacom?
Maybe it's not new news, but at some point, all of the drama, the Sumner drama and the sliding individual cable net drama, to be fair, if you read the Seeking Alpha piece, and we'll put the URL in the along with all the other URLs, we'll put it in the comment section. They do say there's a lot of value to be unlocked, which is maybe a signal for investors to buy. But what they mean is a lot of value to be unlocked when we carve it up and sell it for parts. That's what they mean.
If somebody gave you MTV networks, would you take it?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't. No,
okay.
It's my former alma mater, and I love things we did there. So it's hard to say, but if you read Jason Hirschhorn, who's as loyal a Viacom alum as any, he's really pissed off at them. He's really pissed off. And he knows the inner workings of that place way better than I do. Anyway, so we can move on because we're at 20 minutes and I want to jump to this. So chapter 2, and this has been something you've been saying for a while that I haven't really understood, but it seems like there now is some rumors that that maybe things are not all kosher in the relationship between the FCC and some of the people in the space. And maybe this isn't the one you've been talking about, but it's the fact that this came out with the MPAA moniker on it made me read it.
Well, let's back up. So before we get to that, right? The 4 days ago, Tom Wheeler, the chairman of the FCC, put up an op-ed on Recode announcing a proposal to open the set-top box market, right? So mostly, with some weird exceptions, when you get cable, you get their set-top box, and they're charging you, ratcheting
$8 a month.
What?
$8 a month.
Oh, it's more than that.
I don't have one, so I wouldn't know.
Okay, right. So and if you want the DVR from Fios, it's like $30.
And a friend of mine, by the way, that knows the cable business very well, says they make an enormous margin on that deal.
Oh, funny about that.
Yeah.
So, and there's this screwy technology called Cable Card that was supposed to do this and never really quite worked. And so they're proposing that any digital box can connect to any cable system, which we know works because you can get Time Warner cable on your Roku and you can get all these apps on your Android and iOS devices, and that works fine. And so, of course, they should do this. Of course, you should be able to buy programming separate from hardware. And that's just the way it is. And so, but guess what? The people who make a lot of money from renting the set-top boxes object. Oh, don't tell us how to run our business. It's technically impossible. Oh, and then, the MPAA, which gets, a fifth of its money from Comcast now through NBC Universal, cries bloody murder about the scandal. Oh, my God. Google is showing some technology to the FCC. MPAA and Cable Labs, everybody shows stuff to the FCC. So, I'm not saying that it's on the up and up, but the FCC should know about what technology is.
I have to pause and break in because one of our live viewers on Facebook, Malcolm Bird, who you may know.
Hello, Malcolm.
Said that you look incredibly sexy. Oh, you're blushing. By the way, Malcolm is running for president, and I think that the show should endorse him.
We are endorsing, so our viewer in Iowa, you need to go tomorrow night
to
your caucus.
No, yes, to our viewer, yes, because Malcolm is not in Iowa. He's in the fine city of New York. All right, anyway, so I hear what you're saying. So you're saying this is a bit of a tempest in a teapot, and it's just the broadcasters trying to retain their set-top box revenue.
Yes. Do you see, when you read the MPAA thing, did you see anything different that made you think that there was something untoward going on?
No, actually. I think that people shouldn't be forced. Remember back in the good old days with AT&T where you had the phone and you could get the Princess phone or you could get the desk phone and they rented them to you and there was no other choices. I thought we'd evolved as a species beyond that place where hardware gets shoved down your throat. So I would love to not have to use their damn box. And I don't, because I'm...
You don't, but you went a cable card, right?
No.
No?
I went to TiVo.
Well, you went to TiVo without cable, and you just get over-the-air TV on TiVo.
Yep, which other than the fact that the antenna gets a little spotty in storms is just fine.
And you can, until all the TV stations in New York sell their digital frequencies, which they're about to do, so you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I'll worry about that when I come to it. All right, so we're back on Apple for a moment. So this is our last chapter in the show is this digital news evolution that's happening, and Apple launched Watchup Video News. Now
wait, let's get our verbs right. Apple now has an open app store, so Watchup released an Apple TV app, just like they've had a very nice app on iOS for 3 or 4 years. Reuters TV already has, I think, a much better app on Apple TV, and there's other ones that the.
All right. So your competitive genes notwithstanding, though, you would say that giving someone 160 sources where they can put together their quote own newscast, like that's a model you believe in.
No.
No.
I mean, I believe that most people would rather have easy and curated than too much choice. Now, in fact, that said, Watchup has gone in that direction. If you look at I know those guys, and I have a lot of respect for what they did, partially because they started out giving you this big menu of lots of stuff, and they moved to a playlist that was generated for you. The problem with curating from 160 sources is most of those are duplicates, right? Most TV news says the same stuff. So you have to do a lot of work that people haven't entirely figured out how to make a TV news experience that isn't so obnoxiously repetitious or out of date. It's a harder challenge than it sounds. But I think it's great. I mean, someone, and unfortunately it's not me, is going to figure out how to do this. I like Reuters TV. Reuters TV has the advantage of being made by one organization that's big enough that they can have a coherent arc. And they do some neat technology things. So they start with a newscast. They give you a nice, curated newscast that makes sense, that has a consistent tone and voice. I mean, we can discuss whether not having an anchor is exactly what the world wants or is missing something important about the medium. But
So we're really just about running up to the end of our half hour. So we've got one last story, which is this Columbia Journalism Review piece, which I thought was actually really interesting. I read it carefully enough to understand what they were saying, which is, our news organizations essentially censoring their broadcasts by simply dialing up or down social media depending on what they want to say.
Walk me through that again, because I'm not sure I followed it.
So the headline is censorship in the social media age, and essentially what it says is nearly 500,000 people had already seen the video before Dan Ilk tried to upload it to Facebook. A self-professed investigative humorist, Ilk managed the Facebook page for Hungry Beast, an Australian comedy show. The video, titled "Is Laboplasty a New Fad?" have been circulated on YouTube since the Hungry Beast released it in 2011. But as soon after he clicked post, he received this notice from the social site saying the content had been removed and was banned. And he was banned from logging in for 24 hours. There was no additional explanation. So the question is, if the banning on, for example, Facebook is algorithmic, which we know it is, do you find yourself in a place where you don't use, Bruce Springsteen is introducing a political speech, but you don't use the clip because you know that might hit their algorithm?
That feels a little bit like a corner case, right? I'm sure it's a real problem, but A, you can get around it by mushing things up a little bit, and B, there's a self-corrective thing. I mean, Facebook doesn't want to censor news, but it's humongously big and their algorithms are really sloppy, because every algorithm is really sloppy.
So let's leave it at this. I'll put the link in the comments. Interested in email from all of you guys. We have run out of time yet again. A blisteringly interesting half hour in the ever-changing video space. Saul, good to see you. Stay warm and stay hackable.
And all right, so everybody keep on hacking. And if you actually have listened to a couple of these, we're starting to see our statistics. We're getting a little audience. Write us and say what you think and what you want to hear more of. hackers@hackingtv.news. We want to hear from you.
And that is this episode. Have a good week. We'll see you in 7 days. Bye-bye.
Keep on hacking.